The day Chisholm collapsed in the middle of assembly, nobody moved. Not the teachers. Not the students. Nobody. 1 second she was standing there in her pressed uniform, her iPhone 15 Pro tucked into her waistband like a trophy. And the next second she was on the ground. Shaking. The kind of shaking that does not stop. Someone screamed. Then everyone screamed. But before the ambulance came, before her mother arrived with tears streaming down her face, before the school went completely silent with shock, I need to take you back. Back to where it all began. Because this story did not start with a hospital. It started with a phone. And a choice that 3 girls can never take back. Amara got hers first. She walked into school on a Monday morning in October and every single head turned. Rose gold iPhone 15 Pro. Fresh out of the box. Gleaming under the Hamilton sun like it had been sent from another world entirely. Students gathered around her immediately. Amara, where did you get that? She smiled slowly without blinking. My uncle sent it from abroad. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? Amara had always been the sharp one. The confident one. The girl teachers called gifted and boys called intimidating. If anyone was going to get a phone like that, it was her. At least that is what everyone told themselves. But there was one person who noticed that Amara's hands were shaking when she said it. Within 3 weeks Zai had the same phone. Then Chisholm. Same model. Same color. Same rehearsed story about an uncle abroad. By November the 3 of them were moving through the school hallways like they owned every single corridor. Matching phones. Matching energy. Matching silence whenever conversations got too close to the truth. Students started calling them the iPhone baddies. And they wore it like a crown. But there was a girl sitting at the back of every class watching all of it. Her name was Ekene. And she was not jealous. That is what everyone assumed, but they were completely wrong. Ekene was the kind of person who noticed things other people were too distracted to see. She noticed that Chisholm stopped going home straight after school. She noticed that Zai started wearing perfume that cost more than her mother's entire weekly earnings. She noticed that Amara, who used to walk home with her every single day, now got picked up by a car with tinted windows that always parked 2 streets away from the school gate. One afternoon Ekene asked her directly. Who is that? Amara was already walking away. Family friend, she said without turning around. The car pulled off quickly. But not before Ekene saw the wedding ring on the driver's hand. She said nothing. Not yet. But something cold and heavy settled inside her chest and it refused to move. By December the iPhone baddies were untouchable. Their social media pages were growing fast. Girls in their class were desperate to be associated with them. Teachers praised their confidence without knowing what was funding it. Parents saw the phones and asked no serious questions. The whole school was completely dazzled by the shine and nobody was looking underneath it. Nobody except Ekene. And what she was beginning to see underneath it was darker than anything she had imagined. Stay with me because what Ekene uncovers next will change everything you think you know about these girls. And I promise you, you are not ready for what is coming. January came and something shifted. Not gradually. Overnight. Amara stopped laughing. The girl who used to crack jokes in class and argue with teachers just for fun became someone who stared out windows and flinched every time her phone buzzed. Zai started wearing long sleeves even in the deadliest heat. Chisholm, who had always been the loudest and most confident of the 3, went quiet in a way that felt less like peace and more like someone had reached inside her and switched her off completely. Ekene watched all of it and said nothing. But she was done waiting. One afternoon she followed Chisholm into the bathroom and found her hunched over the sink crying into her hands. Not sniffling. Not tearing up. Crying. The deep broken kind that comes from a place words cannot reach. Chisholm. She spun around. I am fine. You are not fine. Ekene, please. Just leave it alone. Who is he? It was not even a question. And the silence that followed was the loudest thing Ekene had ever heard in her life. Chisholm turned back to the mirror and stared at her own reflection like she was looking at a complete stranger. It started as a joke, she whispered. Amara knew someone. An older man. He had money and he was generous, and she said it was easy. Just dinners. Just company. Just weekends. Nothing serious, she said. Chisholm. I just wanted the phone. Her voice shattered on the last word. I just wanted to stop feeling invisible. Every girl in this school had something and I had nothing, and I just wanted one thing. One thing that made people notice me. Look at me. Choose me. And now, Ekene asked quietly. Does he still make you feel chosen? Chisholm did not answer. She grabbed her bag and walked out. But the door she left open behind her was enough. Ekene spent the next week piecing everything together quietly and carefully. The tinted cars. The weekend disappearances. The cash transfers that arrived on Friday nights like clockwork. 3 teenage girls and 3 older married men who had spotted their desperation from a mile away and decided to exploit every inch of it. The men had given them phones and financed their lifestyle, and in exchange had manipulated these girls into a situation that was becoming more dangerous and more controlling by the day. When Ekene finally confronted Amara directly, she expected fury. She expected denial. Instead, Amara sat down slowly on the classroom bench, dropped her head and stared at the floor for a very long time. Does he know how old you are? Ekene asked. He never asked. Amara. What do you want me to say, Ekene? She looked up and her eyes were completely hollow. That I regret it? Fine. I regret every single day of it. Does that change anything? You need to walk away. I cannot walk away. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. He knows where my family lives. He shows up when I do not respond. Last week he waited outside my gate for 2 hours. 2 hours, Ekene. My mother was inside that house. The room went ice cold. This was no longer about phones or clout or belonging. These girls were being controlled and manipulated by men who had everything to lose publicly and absolutely nothing to lose privately. Men who had turned 3 schoolgirls into secrets kept alongside their wives and their children and their respectable lives. And then February arrived. And everything Ekene had feared came true in the worst possible way. Do not go anywhere. What happens in February will shake you to your core. This is the part nobody talks about and everybody needs to hear. Stay with me. It started with Amara. She missed 3 days of school, and when she came back she looked like someone had stolen 10 years from her face overnight. Her eyes were swollen, her lips cracked, her hands wrapped tightly around the phone she once carried like a crown, as though it was the only thing holding her together. She sat at the very back of the class, pulled her hoodie over her head and stared at the desk in front of her for 6 hours straight. When her seatmate asked if she was okay, she said yes. But the word came out hollow and directionless, like it had been borrowed from someone else. Then Zai disappeared for an entire week. No explanation. No posts. No responses to messages. The school assumed family emergency. Her friends assumed drama. But Ekene knew better, and the knowing sat on her chest like a concrete block that grew heavier every single morning she woke up. When Zai finally returned, Ekene pulled her aside before she could reach her classroom. What happened? Zai kept walking. Nothing happened. Zai, stop. Look at me. She stopped. Turned slowly. And when Ekene saw her face up close, her breath caught in her throat. The weight loss was dramatic. Her eyes had a yellowish tint creeping into the whites. She was holding herself the way people hold themselves when they have received news that their body is still trying to process and reject at the same time. He gave me something, Zai said. Her voice was barely audible. The doctor said I need to begin treatment straight away. That if I had waited any longer, she stopped, pressed her lips together hard. The doctor said I was lucky I came in when I did. Ekene felt her throat tighten. Amara. Same thing. Z's voice cracked completely down the middle. We compared notes last week. We think Chisem has it too, but she is refusing to go to the doctor. She keeps saying that if she does not get tested then it is not confirmed, and if it is not confirmed then it is not real. She has to go, Zai. I know. I have been calling her every day. She picks up and then she just cries and hangs up. Ekene, my mother does not know. My father does not know. I have been sitting at the dinner table every night this week looking at my parents and I do not know how to. She broke down entirely right there in the corridor. Ekene pulled her close and held her without saying a single word because there was nothing adequate enough to say. The world moved loudly and indifferently around them, students laughing and running and complaining about homework, completely unaware that one of their classmates was falling completely apart just meters away. The man had vanished without a trace. Amara had called her 17 times. Straight to voicemail every single time. Zai's had blocked her number without a word. Chisem's had sent one message, a single brutal line that said do not contact me again, and then disappeared as though he had never existed at all. They had taken everything these girls had to offer. And left behind nothing except consequences that would follow them for the rest of their lives. And then came the morning of the assembly. Chisem had gone to the clinic alone the night before. She had sat in that small consulting room by herself and received the same news the other two had received, and she had walked home in the dark and she had not slept a single minute, and she had come to school the next morning because she did not know what else to do or where else to go. And standing in that assembly ground with the morning sun beating down on her, her body finally said enough. We are almost at the end and I promise you the final part will hit different. Stay with me because the last thing Chisem says before she walks out of that hospital will stay with you long after this video ends. The hospital room was small and white and suffocating. Chisem lay on the narrow bed staring at the ceiling while her mother sat beside her holding both her hands and crying in the silent, devastating way that mothers cry when the pain is too large for sound. The iPhone sat on the bedside table where a nurse had placed it after the ambulance arrived. Screen shattered from the fall during assembly. Battery dead. Dark and useless and completely stripped of everything that had once made it feel like power. Ekene came on the third day. She sat in the plastic chair across from Chisem and neither of them spoke for a long time. The machines beeped steadily. A nurse moved past the open door. Outside the window the city was going on exactly as it always did, loudly and indifferently, the way the world always continues when someone else's life is quietly burning to the ground. I keep going back to the day I got the phone, Chisem said finally. Her voice was flat and far away like it was coming from somewhere deep underwater. I stood in front of my mirror for an entire hour just taking pictures. I sent them to everyone I knew. I felt like I had finally arrived somewhere important. Like I finally mattered to people who had never noticed me before. You always mattered, Chisem. Not to anyone who could actually see me. She turned her head slowly toward Ekene. That is the thing nobody warns you about. It is never really about the phone or the money or the followers. It is about the hunger. The hunger to be chosen. To be seen. To feel like you are worth something to someone. And he looked at me like I was worth everything, and I was so starving for that feeling that I never stopped to ask myself what I was really worth to him. Or what he was really taking from me. Ekene could not hold the tears back anymore. The worst part, Chisem continued, her voice hardening slightly at the edges, is that he is fine right now. Wherever he is at this exact moment, he is completely and totally fine. His wife does not know. His children do not know. His colleagues do not know. He woke up this morning and had breakfast and went about his day, and I am lying in this hospital bed and he has not lost a single thing. The injustice of it sat in the room like a living thing. Amara and Zai began their treatment quietly, carrying their diagnosis like invisible weight through every room they entered from that point forward. They returned to school weeks later, quieter, smaller, entirely stripped of everything that had once made them seem untouchable and enviable. The iPhones were gone. The designer accessories were gone. The tinted cars never returned. What remained were three girls who had learned the most devastating lesson of their lives and would spend years living with the weight of it. The men faced no consequences. That part of this story does not have a clean or satisfying ending. Because life does not always deliver justice on schedule. And the most dangerous people are often the ones who walk away completely unscathed while leaving destruction behind them. But here is what Chisholm said on the morning she was discharged. Her mother was folding her clothes into a bag by the window. The nurse was completing the final paperwork at the door. And Chisholm sat on the edge of the bed, looked down at the cracked dead iPhone one last time, and said quietly and clearly to nobody in particular. Nothing they can ever give you is worth what you lose when you allow someone to make you feel that you need their validation to have value. They are not generous. They are not kind. They are calculating. And they are counting on you never knowing your own worth so that they can keep deciding it for you. She stood up, left the phone on the bed, and walked out of that room without looking back once. Some things are too heavy to carry home. And some lessons cost everything before they finally set you free. If this story moved you at all, share it with every girl you know. Not to judge. Not to shame anyone. But because knowing your worth is the most powerful protection you will ever carry. Like this video, share it widely, and let us start the conversation that could change someone's life before it is too late. See you in the next one.